Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. This is the nail set that I did on myself for Valentine's Day, so of course if you're interested in watching, just stay tuned. I already got rid of the shine from my nail bed, and I did that using this nail file that I'm holding here. I just got this nail file from Hair City, and what you want to do is you just want to remove the shine from your natural nails so that the acrylic can adhere properly. You can do this with an electric nail file, but if you don't have one, it's not necessary to purchase. I know that they can be pricey and they're a little scary to use, to be honest. So I personally just like to use a hand file. I take my time and I feel like I have more control this way. So I took the shine off of my natural nail and I glued my nail tips on already. Then of course you can cut them to your desired length. So you want to file your nails prior to applying the nail extension, the plastic tip, and then once you apply it, you want to file it down again just so that there can be more, I guess, of a fusion between the nail tip and your natural nail. Once you've done that, the next thing that you want to do is apply your adhesive. So that's what I just applied here to my natural nail. And it's kind of like an adhesive or a bonding, so it's going to aid in the adhesion of the acrylic to your natural nail, prevent lifting, and keep your set on longer. Once you've done that, you can then move on to applying the acrylic. So this is how I apply my acrylic here. And if you're taking a look, you can probably get an idea of the way I go about doing this. So what I like to do is I like to use small beads. I don't like to use too much acrylic at once because it's easy to mess up and it's more for you to have to control. If you're a beginner, I especially would not recommend that you work with large beads. Use small beads. I use at least 3 beads on each nail. I take a bead, and the key here is making sure that the bead is not too wet and also that it's not too dry. If it's too dry, the acrylic is not going to react properly, right? Because you need to mix the powder with the monomer, and if there's not enough monomer, then the acrylic cannot bond to your nail the way that it should. So it's better to have your bead a little more on the wet side than to have it more on the dry side. If the bead is too dry, it's more likely to lift. If it's too wet, of course, it becomes runny and it's hard to manage, but at least you'll have less of a chance of some lifting. So that's my little tip or some advice to you here. Now that you've got your bead and it's a small bead, you want to start by placing it towards the center of your nail bed, closer to your cuticle. Once it's placed there, you can very lightly and very gently pull it down to the tip of the nail. You want the bulk of the acrylic to be at the apex of your nail. So basically where the plastic nail tip meets your natural nail, that's where you want the majority of the acrylic to be. You want the acrylic to be thinner at the tip of the nail and also thinner at the cuticle, of course. So once you've got that main bulk bead in the center of the nail at your apex, you can then use 2 smaller beads, one smaller bead to cover the area around your cuticle and another smaller bead maybe to thicken and strengthen the tip of the nail if it's too thin. Then of course you can use smaller size beads here and there just to make sure that everything is even. Make sure that when you're working, you're turning your nail from left to right and you're looking at the nail from multiple angles so that you can see whether or not you need to place any more acrylic anywhere. Less is definitely more when it comes to acrylic, and this was a mistake that I made when I was a beginner. I thought that more was less, and I ended up using a lot of product unnecessarily, and all that did was take up my time, waste my product, and take even more time to have to file everything down. It's better to use a little and build than to use too much and make a mess and have a really thick, bumpy, unnatural nail that you have to file down. Unless you're going for that really thick talon look, which most people aren't, don't do this. Just use a little bit of acrylic at a time. You can always build. It's also easier to correct mistakes when the nail bed is relatively thin. If it's too thick, you're gonna have to just keep on adding more acrylic on top of it to even everything out, and it's just not gonna look right. So take your time, use small beads, and really build it up. Just make sure when you are applying the acrylic that acrylic is self-leveling. So basically what that means is that it will smooth out on its own. You don't have to manipulate the bead too much once you set it on the nail. My number 2 biggest piece of advice is to, number 1, use a small bead of acrylic, and number 2, once you place it, just kind of guide it or shape it, but don't try to drag it or move it. It will level on its own. The more you manipulate the bead after you've placed it on the nail, the more bumps you're going to get, and it's not going to look as good as it would if you just apply it and kind of leave it alone. Just shape it as it dries. That's what you want to do. You want to shape it as it dries. You don't want to, again, drag it or try to build any shape with it. You build by adding more acrylic. You don't build the nail by moving the acrylic around while it's still wet. Once everything is done, you want to go back in with your file. Again, of course, to smooth out any bumps, but hopefully you won't have any. If you do what I'm saying, you won't have many bumps. Your nails should look pretty good. What you want to do, though, is, of course, smooth out any imperfections, right? And you do want to make sure that you are sealing the cuticle. This is very important. If you don't seal the cuticle, then moisture and water will get underneath the nail. It will make its way between your natural nail and your fake nail, and it will cause lifting. So something as simple as washing dishes, washing your hair, taking a shower, washing your hands, right? Water will get in between your natural nail and your fake nail, and we don't want that. So what we want to do is make sure that there are no gaps between our natural nail and the acrylic. So seal the cuticle with your file. It could be the electric nail drill, or it could be a hand file. I like to use a hand file even though I do have both. And just really spend some time filing the area around your cuticle so that you can make sure that the acrylic and the nail at your cuticle is flush. You do not want the acrylic to touch your skin. It has to be flush against your nail so that there's no gap, so that water cannot enter it, so that your nails do not lift. Okay. Now that that's all done, you want to buff, of course, just making sure that everything is smoothed out and that you don't have any, lines from the harder nail file that you were previously using. So you do want to buff the nail with just a nail buff, and then once you've done that, only after you've done that should you move on to your polish. As far as polish goes, most people do know this, but you want to start at the cuticle and then work your way up. You don't want to start at the tip and work your way down. That's just asking for a mess. So really working your way from the cuticle up and trying to work quickly and with light coats of polish. If you use polish coats that are too thick, it's going to take forever to dry. Or what will happen is the top layer of that thick coat of polish that you just glopped on, the top coat will dry, and the center or the middle or whatever's underneath that top coat, that polish will remain wet. So that's why sometimes if you use nail polish that's too thick, right, it feels like it's dry on the outside, but if you kind of scrape it a little bit, you'll see that it's still wet underneath. So the top is dry, so air can no longer penetrate through that top dried layer to the layer that's wet, so that will remain wet basically. So we don't want that. We want to work with very thin layers of nail polish. Again, it's better to work with thin layers, less product is more, and we can always build. We can do 2 coats or even 3 coats if needed. But it's going to look so much better and so much more professional if you take your time from the beginning. Then you can build it up, as opposed to rushing in the beginning and then the polish doesn't dry the way it should, and then you've got to take it off and do it again, and in the end it just takes you more time and more product. So take your time with the polish. If you have a hard time, staying on the nail, and if some polish is getting on your skin, that's okay. You can always clean it up with some acetone afterwards. Here I did 2 coats of red and 3 coats of this pink sort of color. By the way, that pink color is Bubble Bath by OPI. All of the acrylic products that I used are from Mia Secret, so I use Mia Secret Extra Bond, Mia Secret Monomer, and Mia Secret Acrylic Powder in Clear. And the red polish that I got, it's one from Walmart. It's a quick dry one. And what I'll do is I will link all of the products that I use in the description box below so that it's easy for you to find the products and you'll be able to see the names instead of just hearing me say it. The next thing that I want to do actually is I want to do some designs with some hearts because this is a Valentine's Day set. So what you're going to need is some kind of plastic. It could be saran wrap, it could be a plastic bag. So whatever it is, you just need something plastic that the nail polish will not adhere to. Then what you can do is just put a few drops of whatever polish you're going to be using on that plastic. And that's going to be your quote-unquote paint. So then what you're going to do is take a very small brush, and as you can see here, just dip your brush in the polish and then use that brush and that polish to create your design. What you also want to make sure that you're doing is periodically dipping your brush in acetone just so that the polish on your brush doesn't harden and ruin the brush. Once the polish hardens on the brush, it's really hard to salvage the brush. It's really hard to get that polish off. So you'll see me periodically dipping my brush in acetone just to make sure that my brush is clean and wet so that the polish doesn't dry onto the bristles and damage the brush. Of course, if the polish that you blotted onto that plastic wrap or whatever it is, of course if that starts to dry, you want to just grab some more polish, so some fresh drops of polish there so that your design looks good and that the paint is easy to work with. I'm just doing hearts. It's pretty easy. I basically just start off by drawing a V, and then once that V shape is drawn in, I just kind of expand it a little bit to make it look more like a heart and less like a V. But that's really it. As long as you take your time, it's not too hard at all. And I know it doesn't look like they are super perfect hearts because they're not stickers, but I kind of like this look. I think it looks cute and homey, and there's just something about it that looks, I don't know, kind of fun. So I like that I was using different shapes and that not all of the hearts looked exactly the same. I think it came out really nice. The last thing that I do is I do take some glitter polish, and it's a pink glitter polish, and I was kind of inspired to use a glitter polish by some of my Valentine's Day balloons. A lot of them do have glitter and sparkles, and Valentine's Day definitely is red, pink, white, and sparkles. So I did take some glitter, and I did put some glitter around the cuticle area on my thumbnail. But that's pretty much it for the designs. So just some glitter around the cuticle for the thumb, and then I did do red hearts on my pinky finger, as you can see, and pink hearts on my pointer finger. And you can do this of course with a pink base color and use red hearts as an accent, or you can do it how I did it and use red as your base and then pink as the accent. So it's really up to you. You can definitely play around with it and make it look how you want it to look, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be looking at your nails. Once everything's done, all you've got to do is top it off with a clear gel coat, cure the nails, cure the gel coat, and you're good to go. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And definitely stay tuned for our next video. Take care, guys. Enjoy your Valentine's Day.